Hey everyone, Nathan here from PH Studios, and welcome back to another networking tutorial. In this tutorial, we will enable the bullets to be created and destroyed. And what we'll do is we'll create a bullet in one client, we'll send that information to the other client, and have both clients, they will take charge of removing the, destroying the bullets, basically. So we need to go into the protocols, and we need to create a bullet created protocol. So we have a player moved is equal to 2, put a comma, and bullet created is equal to 3. And we'll go ahead and save this protocol. And we already, at the very beginning of the series, we already brought in the bullet paper for our image. And it's rotated the same way as the other things, the enemy and the player. So what we need to do is go ahead and go into the game1.cs class. Let's have a list of bullets, or list of gameplay objects. And we're going to have them as player bullets and enemy bullets. Put a comma in between the player bullets and enemy bullets. And in the initialize method, let's go ahead and set the player bullets is equal to new list. And let's set it to about 10. Now what this does is, if you're not familiar with C# and lists, is you can have, almost all my samples do this. But you can actually provide it a number, and that will actually... the basic idea behind this list is that it has like a back-end array at the very end of it, inside the list. So we provide the 10 because we tell it to already initialize the number to 10. And that way, if we have 11 items, it will need to automatically resize the array and do all that stuff. So we just provided a nice number that we think will only have 10 bullets for player and 10 bullets for the enemy on the screen at one time. So we're just setting up a capacity. So we do that for the player bullets and the enemy bullets. Okay. So now if we go to the very top again, and underneath bool enemy connected, let's go ahead and create a keyboard state, current, comma, previous, and semicolon. And we also need to create a timer for the bullets. Time span, bullet timer, semicolon, and we need to have a float, shoot, or shot seconds. Let's just call it shot seconds. Okay, so we already have our stuff initialized, so let's go, or declared, let's go to the initialize method and actually initialize it. So we have a current keyboard state and a previous keyboard state, and we have a time span and a float. So we need to set current is equal to previous is equal to keyboard dot get state. Alright, so we get the current state of the keyboard. Now we need to initialize the seconds. So shot seconds is equal to, let's say you can shoot every 5 seconds. Now we need to initialize the time span. Bullet timer is equal to time span dot from seconds shot seconds. Alright, so now everything's all initialized, and we actually need to initialize the bullet. Okay, let's go ahead and create a, at the very top, texture 2D bullet texture. Alright. And we'll actually clean all this stuff up later on. We're just doing this just to get the basic game going. Alright, so in the load content method, we actually need to load the bullet texture is equal to content.load texture 2D, and let's see what it's called. The asset name is bullet paper underscore 2. I'll go ahead and copy and paste that. Oops. You can actually modify the asset name. If you caught that, what happened there is I pasted the bullet texture, so you can actually modify the asset name. Alright, so we load the bullet texture, and in the update method. And in this method, we want to actually perform our operations, so we need to set the time span, which was called bullet timer. So it's a timer for the bullets when we can shoot. So bullet timer, if bullet timer dot total seconds is greater than 0, we need to subtract it. So we need to do bullet timer dot subtract, and you see it right there. That's a little weird method to call. It returns the time span. So some things when we call dot subtract, it'll actually modify the object, but this one's actually creating a new object. So we need to set bullet timer is equal to bullet timer dot subtract, and we need to subtract the game time dot elapsed game time, which that is a time span object. So we subtract the elapsed game time if it's greater than 0, and that way it'll become 0 and we can shoot. So else, if it is 0 or below 0, that means we can shoot. So else, if current dot is key down keys dot space, you can set up whatever key you want it to. I'm going to use space. And previous dot is key up keys dot space, then we're going to actually shoot. Okay, so we need to actually shoot, so we need to create a new gameplay object. Bullet is equal to new gameplay object. And then bullet dot texture is equal to bullet texture. Bullet dot position is equal to we are shooting, so player dot position. Bullet dot rotation is equal to player dot rotation. Remember, I mentioned this in a lot of videos ago, that you want to have every single asset, your graphics, pointed the same way. So in this case, they're all pointing to the right. That way I can just do what you're seeing here. I do not have to do any modifications. I can just set it as rotation because they are pointed the same way, and if I rotate it based on the player's position, it will automatically be positioned properly. So we rotate it, then we need to set the speed. Bullet.speed is equal to, let's say, 50. And then bullet.velocity is equal to new vector 2. Bullet.speed times, we need to cast float and multiply math.cosine the bullet.rotation. Alright, go ahead and copy that logic right there. Put a comma at the very end. Paste it. And instead of cosine, it needs to be sine. There's a lot of videos that have mentioned how to do this in the past, so I will not talk about that. We're just moving it based on the speed value. We're getting a vector based off the speed and the rotation value. A cosine gets the x component and sine gets the y component. You just multiply we take cosine of the angle times the speed and then sine of the angle times the speed, and we get our appropriate velocity vector. Alright, so that's our velocity. Now what we need to do is we need to do the same thing we did above here when we created the information to send to the server. Go ahead and paste that. Right stream.position, we need to zero out the position. We need to change the protocol to bullet created. And then we need to set it as the we actually don't need to send any information because we will automatically calculate this whenever we are in the receive data information. So we really don't need to send any information. So that will save us some time. Alright, so after we send the data, let's go ahead and add it to the player bullets list. Bullet. Alright, so we add it to the player's bullet list. Now, we're still in the update method. So we need to update everything that's in the list. Let's go ahead and do that right after we update the player. We need to update all the bullets. So, for each gameplay object, let's call it game object in player bullets. Let's call game object.update game time. Alright, so now we need to do the same thing. Go ahead and copy that for each loop and paste it, and then we're going to do it in enemy bullets. Alright, now you want to go ahead and copy both these for each loops and go down to the draw method. Right above the spritebatch.end, after we draw our player and enemy, paste those two for each loops. Now we're going to call draw, and draw accepts a game time and a sprite batch. Alright, now it has to be between begin and end calls when we call that draw method, so we are good to go. Alright, finally, in the process received information where we check our protocols, we need to add another else if P is equal to protocol.bullet created. So we create a bullet, and we can go ahead and actually copy this data here. Go ahead and paste that data there. So we go ahead and create a gameplay object called bullet, and we need to initialize that to a new gameplay object. The texture gets set, the position gets set to the enemy in this case. The rotation needs to get set based on the enemy in this case. You want both bullets to have the same speed, and you want to go ahead and set the velocity, and we'll set enemy bullets.add, and then bullet. Okay, last but not least, we need to reset the timer after we successfully created a bullet. So, bullet timer is equal to time span dot from seconds, and then the float was shot seconds. Even I can't remember what all the methods and functions and variables and parameters and all that stuff are called, so don't feel bad if you can't remember either. Alright, I'm just having another one of those off days anyway. So we go ahead and we initialize all of our information, the current and previous. We need to reset those. In the update method, we need to create a previous is equal to current is equal to keyboard.get state. So we put that at the very top of our update method before anything else. Okay, so some last minute changes that I made to the code. There was another keyboard state called current down here. So I just removed that line so I can use the current that I created above here. And I also added it in the constructor so it'll get initialized right away. And okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so go ahead and press F5 to run the game. And let's press space a few times, waiting for it. Alright. Now, it moves a little bit slow, so what we're going to do is increase the speed. So if we go back to our thing here, let's go ahead and double speed to 100. That's in the update method. When we actually can fire the bullet, we set up all of its information, use the speed as 100, and also in the bullet created protocol, we need to double it as well. So 100 here. Finally, I want to fire a new bullet right away, so I'm just going to initialize the time span right away to 0. So now if I press F5, I can fire right away, and then I have to wait. Now, you might want to display the timer on the screen if you want to do it that way. Otherwise, you'll just have to wait. Okay, so now that's for one client. Now let's go ahead and see what happens when we run it on another client. Let's go ahead and build it. So I'll build the solution. That way I can get to the executable. Alright, so that's one client. This is another client. Alright, so let's have client A, the one on the left, fire. That way we can have a look. Alright, looks pretty good. Alright, so this was a pretty lengthy tutorial. I was hoping it would be like a very quick tutorial. So at the very end of this tutorial, I like to just talk a few minutes about a question that somebody asked me. And I'm sure that other people have a question as well. That's why I wanted to do it in the video. And if you have any questions, and just let me know and I'll be able to answer it on the video. That way I can just do a detailed explanation. So if I run the game and I run another client. So I have two games working. Let me go ahead and position those. The question that somebody asked is, when I move, when I send the information, why don't I send the new position? Well, if you look at the two graphics, the two games here, I'm controlling the left screen. Now, the right screen is updated, but it's updating the enemy, which is at the very top. So I can't send the new position because it will push the enemy at the very bottom of the screen. So I just need to send the delta position, that way I can update the enemy based on what happened with the key presses. Now, when I move up, I need to move the enemy down, so that's why I subtract the Y's value. And when I move down, I want to push the enemy up, because I'm going in reverse. So if that makes any sense, that's why I cannot send the new, just the position. I have to send the delta position, that way I can move the enemy based on what changed, not what is currently the position. Now, if you want to add additional mathematics and create a whole new algorithm to transform, or you want to send this new position and you actually want to transform it to the enemy's location, you can do that as well. But it's much easier to send the delta position. So anyway, we now have bullets. And next tutorial, we will talk about expanding on the bullets. And I'll release something that has not been released for the public yet. Well, it technically has, but you had to get something else in order to have access to it. And I'll go ahead and show that to you right now. And you can probably write it down if you want to. It's a recent file, and it's a spawn pool. We're going to use this for the bullets. So, you had to check out the particle system from Subversion to get this. So, it was technically released to the public the particle system was not until a few months ago. It was a premium member only system, and then I released it to the public whenever I talked about the Subversion, because I put it up on Subversion when I released everything. So you can have access to that if you check out the particle system from Subversion. You have a spawn pool class, and what this does is it will create a queue. It'll have a spawn pool, and we want to use this for bullets because we do not want to create a new bullet every time we press space, and then we'll just go ahead and delete that bullet afterwards. If you want to see it in use, go ahead and look at the particle system. It's a very cool thing to do. It does speed up things a lot. Lots of useful memory management. That way we can reuse bullets. Whenever they pass the screen, we will reuse it instead of going ahead and deleting it. If you are aware of that, that's why we did not delete bullets after they left the screen, because I'm going to throw in the spawn pool at the next video. So anyway, go ahead and check this out if you want to. Look at the particle system Subversion and look at the spawn pool in use. It's using a queue, and it has a release and add. Now this is using generics, which means any type, just like a list. If we go back to the game1.cs and you look at the list here, you will see it's a list of gameplay objects. It can be a list of bytes, ints, strings. It can be a list of TCP clients. It can be a list of basically anything. But for the spawn pool, it has to be an object because I say where t:new. That means that it does have a constructor, so it needs to be an object. Alright, so that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Next tutorial, we'll do cleanups on the bullets when they pass through the sides of the game window, and we'll actually add them back to the spawn pool. So the spawn pool will give us bullets, and we'll add them when we're finished with them, if that makes sense. We'll populate it. We'll add new bullets. And this is demonstrated inside the particle system. I hope to see you next time.